Parallel panels. In a world of stark black, white, and screen tone, Kaito lived a life of explosive action. He was the hero of Demon Slashers, a high school student destined to save the world. Every day was a blur of sword fights, energy blasts, and dramatic pronouncements against monstrous foes. His path was clear, his fate drawn in bold, decisive ink. Miles and dimensions away, in a world saturated with soft pastels and gentle light, Hana navigated the subtle complexities of office life. She was the protagonist of Soul Love Story, a webtoon about finding romance in the everyday. Her days were filled with coffee runs, looming deadlines, and the quiet hope of a handsome coworker noticing her. Her story was a gentle gradient, her future sketched in soft pencil. One Tuesday, during a climactic battle, Kaito noticed it. In the middle of a 2-page spread, where a devastating attack should have been, there was nothing. A perfect, sterile white rectangle, an empty panel devoid of ink or action. The demon froze. The world held its breath. It was a void in his reality. That same Tuesday, during a pivotal meeting, Hana saw it too. Where a chart of quarterly earnings was supposed to be in her presentation, there was a blank space. A clean, empty panel in the middle of her digital comic strip. Her boss and coworkers didn't seem to notice, their speech bubbles continuing as scripted. But for Hana, the silence of that space was deafening. Driven by a strange impulse she didn't understand, Hana reached out to her tablet during her lunch break. She found the blank panel in her story's timeline. Hesitantly, she took her stylus and within the empty space drew a simple flower, a small, delicate daisy. Kaito staggered back. In the void that had interrupted his battle, lines began to form. Not the sharp, aggressive lines of his world, but soft, colored strokes. A small, delicate daisy bloomed in the middle of his battlefield. It was the first real color he had ever seen. The demon and the battle were forgotten. Kaito, a warrior who only knew how to fight, did something he'd never done before. He found a piece of charcoal from a burning car and, on the other side of the panel, he drew. He sketched a clumsy but recognizable drawing of his own face, a large question mark floating above his head. Hana gasped. Next to her daisy, a black and white drawing appeared. A boy with wild hair and fierce eyes, looking confused. He was nothing like the polished, handsome men of her world. He felt real. She smiled and drew her own face next to his, adding a cheerful wave. Thus began their silent conversation. They communicated across worlds through the blank panel that appeared for them each day. Hana would draw the colorful foods she ate. Kaito would draw the monstrous beasts he fought. He showed her his world of sharp angles and shadows. She showed him her world of soft light and blooming relationships. They started to live for the panel. Kaito grew weary of his endless, scripted battles. The thrill was gone, replaced by a longing for the quiet, colorful world Hana described. His drawn-on smiles in the panel were more genuine than any victory grin. Hana found her world's romance plot tedious. The handsome coworker's advances felt hollow compared to the silent understanding she shared with the boy in the panel. She spent her nights not dreaming of a first date, but of what it would be like to see Kaito's world in person. One day, Kaito drew a cherry blossom tree in the panel. Hana, recognizing it from his drawings of his world, drew herself sitting under it. Kaito then drew himself sitting next to her. For a moment, they weren't in two different worlds. They were together. They fell in love through lines and colors. But their love was tinged with the sadness of their separation. They wanted more than just drawings. They wanted to hold hands, to hear each other's voices. They began to wonder, what were these panels? And who was creating their worlds? The answer came when they both, on a whim, decided to inspect the very edges of their existence. Hidden in the gutter of Kaito's manga page and in the metadata of Hana's webtoon file, they found the same tiny signature. the author. They were characters in a story. Their lives were not their own. But the panel was a glitch, a mistake, a place where the author's pen had slipped. It was their only hope. They devised a plan, drawing frantic diagrams to each other. They would have to do the one thing a character should never do: break the script. Kaito's final chapter arrived. He stood before the Demon King, the fate of his world resting on his shoulders. The script demanded he raise his sword for the final, heroic blow. The text boxes were filled with his epic battle cry. Hana's final episode was uploaded. She stood on a bridge under the stars, across from her handsome suitor. He was holding a ring. The script demanded she say yes. The air was filled with romantic, sparkling effects. But Kaito ignored the Demon King. He ignored the script. He dropped his sword, turned his back on the battle, and faced the reader. He looked out from the page and placed his hand flat against the invisible wall of the panel, pushing. And Hana ignored her suitor. She ignored the perfect ending. She took a step back, turned away from the romance, and faced the screen. She looked out at the world and placed her hand flat against the glass, pushing with all her might. The border shattered. Ink and pixels dissolved into a whirlwind of light and color. Kaito and Hana tumbled out of their stories and into a new space. They saw each other for the first time, not as drawings, but as real people. He was no longer just black and white, and she was more vibrant than any color palette. They stood, hand in hand, and stepped forward together into the author's world.